So this is chapter 4, part 2. So Jack and the hunters have just run off to go hunting with their new painted faces up and everything. Jack calls it dazzle paint, by the way. He says, like they would wear in a war. We know it as camouflage, right? Because we're hunters and stuff like that. So you get the concept. All right, now it flashes to Ralph and Piggy, okay? And they're kind of over by the pools, and Piggy's thinking again, right? And he says, we should make a clock, okay? Ralph kind of sometimes has it with Piggy and his ideas, and he's like, oh yeah, and an airplane and a TV set. And he's like, come on, like that's not reasonable. We don't have the things to make that, blah, blah, blah. So they're swimming in a pool, right? They're swimming in like the little pool there. And all of a sudden, Piggy looks up and he's like, I don't see any smoke. Is that a ship? And Ralph holds his hair up. It says both hands have to hold his hair up so he can see like through his eyes and stuff like that. And Piggy's yelling, I can't see any smoke. I can't see any smoke. Is there smoke? Because they think in the distance they see a ship coming. Well, it turns out they see the smokestack and everything from a ship. It is a ship sailing by. And they're all excited because they're like, they'll see our smoke. They'll come rescue us. And then Piggy starts yelling, I don't see any smoke. I don't see any smoke. Is the fire going? And Ralph looks up and there's no smoke. See down here, he's like, Ralph, please, is there a signal? Ralph's running like clear across the island to try to see if that fire's still going or not. And so he's not answering. And then here it says how Ralph is running through the forest. By the time he reaches the spot, he's like left breathless except to swear. And he realizes they let the fire go out, and he's like, oh God, oh God. And then he starts yelling like he kind of loses it. He's like, come back, because the ship sails off because it doesn't see any smoke or signal fire. Oh my gosh. You know this was Ralph's thing, right? Like, keep the fire going, it's rescue, you know, that kind of thing. And then the hunters who are supposed to be attending to it are doing what? They're off hunting, right? They just painted their faces and now they're all excited and they're off on a hunt, and no one no one tended the fire, left it unattended. There's no fire. A ship goes by and now they lost their chance at rescue, basically. So Ralph is livid. They let the bloody fire go out, he says. And then coming through the woods at that very moment are the hunters. And he's like, there they are. And he like is going to like rage after them, okay? And everybody knows like Ralph is just exhausted. Out of the woods come the hunters, but it says they're carrying something swinging from a stake, and you realize it's a pig. The hunters caught their first pig, okay? But here's the thing. They're walking in this line, you know, carrying the pig, and they started taking up this chant now. Kill the pig, cut our throat, spill our blood. They keep chanting this over and over as they're coming out of the forest. All right, well, Ralph goes running up to Jack, and of course, you know, there's going to be a heated confrontation. So this is where we're going to pick up reading, guys. So we're going to start right here and continue with the rest of the chapter. Jack, his face smeared with clays, reached the top first and hailed Ralph excitedly with lifted spear. Remember, Jack doesn't know some ship just went by that they missed. He's just all jacked up about their hunt. They finally killed a pig. Look, we killed a pig. We stole up on them. We got in a circle. Voices broke in from the hunters. We got in a circle. We crept up. The pig squealed. The twins stood with Pig swinging between them, dropping black gouts on the rock. They seemed to share one wide, ecstatic grin. Jack had too many things to tell Ralph at once. Instead, he danced a step or two, remembered his dignity, stood still grinning. He noticed blood on his hands and grimaced distastefully, looking for something on which to clean them, then wiped them on his shorts and laughed. Ralph spoke. You let the fire go out. Jack checked, vaguely irritated by this irrelevance, but too happy to let it worry him. We can light the fire again. You should have been with us, Ralph. We had a smashing time. The twins got knocked over. We hit the pig. I fell on top. I cut the pig's throat, said Jack proudly, and yet twitched as he said it. Can I borrow yours, Ralph, to make a nick in the hilt? Okay, so Jack, they got this pig and everything, but he still is a little bit like squeamish at what he had to do for it. And like seeing the blood on his hands and stuff is still a little much for him, which I think is a good thing. If you're some kid who's not yet used to hunting and you had to go up and creep up and kill something that you're not used to, I'm okay with you being a little squeamish about it the first time. Versus somebody like Roger, who might actually almost enjoy it a bit too much. That's scary. The boys chattered and danced. The twins continued to grin. There was lashings of blood, said Jack, laughing and shuddering. You should have seen it. We'll go hunting every day. Ralph spoke again hoarsely. He had not moved. You let the fire go out. This repetition made Jack uneasy. He looked at the twins and then back at Ralph. We had to have them in the hunt, or there wouldn't have been enough for a ring. He flushed, conscious of a fault. He still doesn't know what happened, you guys, but he knows something's up because Ralph is super ticked. The fire's only been out an hour or two. We can light it up again. He noticed Ralph's scarred nakedness and the somber silence of all four of them. He sought, charitable in his happiness, to include them in the thing that had happened. His mind was crowded with memories of the knowledge that had come to them when they were closed in on the struggling pig, knowledge that they had outwitted a living thing, imposed their will on it, taken away its life like a long, satisfying drink. He spread his arms wide. You should have seen the blood. The hunters were more silent now. But at this, they buzzed again. Ralph flung back his hair, one arm pointed at the empty horizon. His voice was loud and savage and struck them into silence. There was a ship! Jack, faced at once with too many awful implications, ducked away from them. He laid a hand on the pig and drew his knife. Ralph brought his arm down, fist clenched, and his voice shook. There was a ship! Out there! You said you'd keep the fire going, and you let it out! He took a step toward Jack, who turned and faced him. They might have seen us. We might have gone home. This was too bitter for Piggy, who forgot his timidity in the agony of his loss. He began to cry out shrilly, You and your blood, Jack Merridew! You and your hunting! We might have gone home! Ralph pushed Piggy to one side. I was chief, and you are going to do what I said. You talk, but you can't even build huts. Then you go off hunting and let out the fire. He turned away, silent for a moment. Then his voice came again on a peak of feeling. There was a ship! One of the smaller hunters began to wail. The dismal truth was filtering through to everybody. Jack went very red as he hacked and pulled at the pig. The job was too much. We needed everyone. Ralph turned. You could have had everyone when the shelters were finished, but you had to hunt. We needed meat. Jack stood up as he said this, the bloodied knife in his hands. The two boys faced each other. There was the brilliant world of hunting, tactics, fierce exhilaration, skill, and there was the world of longing and baffled common sense. Jack transferred the knife to his left hand and smudged blood over his forehead as he pushed down the plastered hair. Piggy began again. You didn't ought to have let that fire out. You said you'd keep the smoke going. This from Piggy and the wails of the agreement from some of the hunters drove Jack to violence. The bolting look came into his blue eyes. He took a step and, able at last to hit someone, stuck his fist into Piggy's stomach. Piggy sat down with a grunt. Jack stood over him. His voice was vicious with humiliation. You would you, fatty? Ralph made a step toward Jack and smacked Piggy's head. Piggy's glasses flew off and tinkled on the rocks. Piggy cried out in terror, My specs! He went crouching and feeling over the rocks, but Simon, who got there first, found them for him. Passions beat about Simon on the mountaintop with awful wings. One side's broken. Piggy grabbed and put on the glasses. He looked malevolently at Jack. I gotta have them specs. Now I only got one eye. Just you wait. Jack made a move toward Piggy, who scrambled away till a great walk lay between them. He thrust his head over the top and glared at Jack through his one flashing glass. Now I only got one eye. Just you wait. Jack mimicked the whine and scramble. Just you wait. Yeah. Piggy and the parody were so funny that the hunters began to laugh. Jack felt encouraged. He went on scrambling, and the laughter rose to a gale of hysteria. Unwillingly, Ralph felt his lips twitch. He was angry with himself for giving way. He muttered, "That was a dirty trick." Jack broke out of his gyration and stood facing Ralph. His words came in a shout. All right, all right." He looked at Piggy, at the hunters, at Ralph. "I'm sorry. About the fire, I mean. There, He drew himself up. "I apologize." The buzz from the hunters was one of admiration at this handsome behavior. Clearly, they were of the opinion that Jack had done the decent thing, had put himself in the right by his generous apology, and Ralph obscurely in the wrong. They waited for an appropriately decent answer. Yet Ralph's throat refused to pass one. He resented, as an addition to Jack's misbehavior, this verbal trick. The fire was dead, and the ship was gone. Could they not see? Anger instead of decency passed his throat. "That was a dirty trick." They were silent on the mountaintop while the opaque look appeared in Jack's eyes and passed away. Ralph's final word was an ingracious mutter. "All right, light the fire." With some positive action before them, a little of the tension died. Ralph said no more, did nothing, stood looking down at the ashes round his feet. Jack was loud and active. He gave orders, sang, whistled, threw remarks at the silent Ralph. Remarks that did not need an answer, and therefore could not invite a snub. And still Ralph was silent. No one, not even Jack, would ask him to move, and in the end they had to build the fire 3 yards away, and in a place not really as convenient. So Ralph asserted his chieftainship, and could not have chosen a better way if he had thought for days. Against this weapon, so indefinable and so effective, Jack was powerless and raged without knowing why. But by the time the pile was built, they were on different sides of a high barrier. Like literally and figuratively, you guys. You now see this this face-off between Jack and Ralph. It's like the two leaders going head to head here. And Jack's pretty manipulative. Like, he knows how to work it. He does the whole apology thing, but it's like Ralph's like, how could they fall for an apology? They literally let a ship go by that could have wrecked us, and now they're okay because Jack's like, oh, I apologize, but he doesn't really mean it. After he punches Piggy and breaks his specs. You guys, the specs are not only important to Piggy. What are those specs important for? The fire, right? And if there's no fire, they're not going to cook that food. They're not going to have a rescue signal. Those specs are super important. And Jack, in his like indignant, angry attitude, doesn't think first, and he just smacks them. And then in the scuffle, basically, Piggy's glasses get knocked off. When they had dealt with the fire, another crisis arose. Jack had no means of lighting it. See, here we go. Then, to his surprise, Ralph went to Piggy and took the glasses from him. Not even Ralph knew how a link between him and Jack had been snapped and fastened elsewhere. I'll bring 'em back. I'll come too. Piggy stood beside him, islanded in a sea of meaningless color, while Ralph knelt and focused the glassy spot. Instantly, the fire was alight. Piggy held out his hands and grabbed the glasses back. Before these fantastically attractive flowers of violet and red and yellow, unkindness melted away. They became a circle of boys round a campfire, and even Piggy and Ralph were half drawn in. Soon some of the boys were rushing down the slope for more wood, while Jack hacked the pig. They tried holding the whole carcass on a stake over the fire, but the stake burned more quickly than the pig roasted. In the end, they skewered bits of meat on branches and held them in the flames, and even then almost as much boy was roasted as meat. Ralph dribbled. He meant to refuse meat, but his past diet of fruit and nuts, with an odd crab or fish, gave him to little resistance. He accepted a piece of half-raw meat and nodded like a wolf. Piggy spoke, also dribbling. Aren't I having none? Jack had meant to leave him in doubt, as an assertion of power, but Piggy, by advertising his omission, made more cruelty necessary. You didn't hunt. No more did Ralph, said Piggy wetly, nor Simon, he amplified. There isn't more than a half-porth of meat in a crab. Ralph stirred uneasily. we'll stop there, guys, and I'll finish this. There's only a little bit left in the next video.